So you've got your zipper, and you need to prepare the seam that the zipper is going to go in. So you're going to either use the mark that they gave you if you have the zipper that's the correct length, or if you've shortened one to the correct length. And you will determine the placement here, and you will baste at 5/8 of an inch up to the length that they've told you that you needed, or sometimes the pattern has a dot or a mark there at the where you need to baste to, and the rest of the seam allowance is going to be stitched at a standard 2.5 5/8 of an inch. And make sure it is definitely a 5/8 of an inch, because you will need that for the zipper. You will also note that you need to finish the seam allowance. Remember, on your skirt, all seam allowances will be finished, and you need to do this before you set in the zipper. There's really no way to get in here without doing that before, after the zipper's in. Also, if you're doing a French seam or a flat felt seam or a welt seam or something, you cannot do that at the zipper area. So you need to switch to something that can be open flat for the zipper. Then below that, you can do whatever seam finish you desire. Okay. So I'm going to apply the zipper. First, I have to position it. It's going to be a lapped zipper, and it's going to lap from the left to the right. And I need to, this skirt has a waistband. If your skirt has a waistband, you'll want to mark at 5/8, because you're going to stitch a 5/8 inch seam allowance here. You're going to mark at 5/8 where that seam allowance is going to be. And you're going to make sure that the top of the metal pull of the zipper is below that 5/8 of an inch. So it doesn't matter how long the tape is, whether it comes to here or whether it's way down here. You want the tab to be just below that 5/8, because you don't want to catch that in the seam. If you have a yoke or a facing on the top instead of a waistband, then you're going to want to back that down another 3/8 of an inch or more, because you're going to want to put a hook up here instead. But now we can, with a waistband, you can move it up, because you're going to have a hook on the waistband portion. So we're going to position that down, and then we're going to take just the right seam allowance, and we're going to position the coils. So I'm going to use a pin here and make sure that this is above the, so that I can see the seam allowance. And I'm going to pin so that the coils are on the seam line. And when we're doing a zipper, we're going to stitch always in the same direction so that we don't have any twisting of the seam. And the preferred direction is to stitch from the bottom to the top. We're going to do 3 rows of stitches, 2 on this one side to anchor it. That is going to be only just through the seam allowance, and then the top stitch on the outside, which is the one that's going to show. So I have my zipper in place, and now I need to use the zipper foot. So I'm going to pop the foot off. I'm going to use the zipper foot so that I can read the number 4. And then remember, you have a choice of left or right as to positioning the zipper foot. I have my zipper to the left at this step, so I'm going to position the foot to the right. Sorry, so I can get down. So it's positioned to the right. And then the zipper, the needle position is still in the center, but I want to stitch very close to this edge. So I'm going to use the stitch width control when it's in the single, the number 1 straight stitch. The stitch width control controls the position of the needle. And I think we did 3.5. We'll keep it just inside this, so you can follow along. There's usually a little ridge here on the a guideline on the zipper tape, so you can follow along. And I do start stitching it below the tape here to give it a little secure edge. And we would use, you could use a basting stitch on this, which is a 6.0, but I would do a little reverse here to lock it in place. And use needle down as well, and a little bit of reverse. We will be taking that out eventually.
And then the next step, still on the seam allowance only, is to fold this back and make a little pleat, and you're going to stitch the seam allowances, now two edges of it, next to the teeth here. So you could pin that down as well. I'm going to pin this vertically because it's too hard to go over the edges. Now, especially if you have metal teeth, you need to make sure that there is room next to this coil for the width of the slider, because otherwise it will not zip up smoothly. So give yourself a little space there. And continue up. And now this is going to be a permanent row of stitching, so you can go back to your regular stitch length. So I'm going to go back to 2.5. If you have a heavier fabric, then go ahead and use a 3 or 3.5. Now you'll see I had my zipper foot, because I'm stitching from the bottom up. Now my zipper tape is on the other side. So now I need to reverse the position of the zipper foot and switch it so that most of it is to the left of the center. And now I need to move the needle, because otherwise it'll crash into here. So I'm going to go to the stitch width dial again and move it to 3.5 the other way. Okay. So again, I'm going to go past here a little bit, and I'm going to stitch at the edge. And this would also be, you would be tying off here. All right. So now I've stitched it near the edge. This side of the zipper tape is in. And now the next step would be to flip this flat. And I'm going to baste either by machine or by hand. I'm going to baste the zipper in place so that I can stitch from the right side. All right, so I've basted the line of where from the back, and now I'm going to do the final and last row of stitching, which will show on the top. So I'm back to at 2.5, and I have moved the zipper foot again to the other side so that I can start from the bottom up. I'm also going to go across the bottom, making sure that I miss the metal zipper stop or your thread one, and go just beyond that. So I'm going to tie off. And then I'm going to use my basting as a guide.
and I'm going to pivot. I'm going to try and, I basted it at the edge so that my stitching will not interfere and it'll be easy to remove my basting stitches. And you still need the zipper foot because I'm coming up along the zipper tab. Tie off again. All right. And then the zipper is stitched. And now I'm going to, I will take out these basting stitches that are holding it on just because they're not attractive. And then I need to take out the basting stitches that are holding the seam shut. And then we'll have the zipper ready for the waistband. So let me just open a few of these up for you. And we'll go all the way down. Oops, tied it off there. All right, so now the zipper is when the basting stitches are all removed, you can't see the zipper, doesn't matter what zipper tape color it is, and then when you open it up, you can see that it's neat and clean, and you have room to open up with the tab.